Okay, so welcome everyone. This is the Linguistics and English Language Welcome Talk. We're happy to actually see you, hopefully. And just to say that I will be shortly handing over to Professor Alice Turk, who is the head of Linguistics and English Language. I am Pavel. I am the guy behind all the emails you've been getting. So you can also see me in my box room here, just outside, just by the meadows here in Edinburgh. Okay, so before we start, just a couple of things. So as Alice said, do please feel free to keep your camera on. It's really great to actually see you, genuinely amazing. But if you can't, that's obviously also fine. And you're here, so this means that you can see and hear us, which is good. So if you do have questions, then please post them into the chat. And we'll be kind of looking out for that as well. And we do recommend that if you can join on a computer and have your phone handy, because we will be using Mentimeter. It is something that those of you who read the Welcome Talk yesterday with Holly are now familiar with. And it's just easier if you have sort of two devices at the same time, but you can stay on your phone if that's where you are. And indeed, you can also use Mentimeter on the computer as well. But just to give you a little heads up about that. Okay, so I'm just now going to hand over to Alice.
So hi everyone. Can everyone hear me? I'm Professor Alice Turk, and I'm the head of Linguistics and English Language. And I'm delighted to welcome all of you here today. I think that starting university is one of the most exciting times in your lives, and I'm especially excited for you because you're planning to study a subject that is intrinsically important and really interesting. And I've been captivated by linguistics for the past 25 years. So language is arguably the most important human tool. So it's used for transmitting ideas from one person to another, but it's also used for forming and fostering social relationships. And it's hard to imagine the collaborative human achievements without using language. So I doubt that our human achievements would have been possible without the use of language. And even the most mundane human activities, like washing up, are not possible without the use of language, because the language is required for designing taps, for collaborating in order to make water available in homes, for designing plates, and many more things. It's really, really difficult to imagine the creation of objects without the use of language. So maybe like many of you, I became interested in linguistics just because I enjoyed learning languages. I'm a phonetician, and so I was particularly interested in getting the pronunciation right. That was my main focus. And it wasn't until I got to university that I was confronted with some of the questions that I think make linguistics really interesting. So things like, how does language work? That's maybe the most important question. How does it work? How do we get from an intended message to fluctuations in air pressure that is heard as speech? How are particular languages structured? What do different languages have in common? How do children learn language? How do adults learn language? How do we signal our identities using language and speech? How do languages change over time? So all of these questions are are fascinating, and we know something about the answers to some of these questions, but not everything. What I'll do now is tell you 3 things that I think make linguistics and English language so interesting. So the first thing that I like about linguistics and English language is that it's multifaceted and interdisciplinary. So to speak requires the coordinated activity of the lungs and the vocal tract. It's governed by physics, and it's controlled by the brain. The producing language is also produced in a social context. So linguistics is related to sociology. Language changes over time, so it's related to its historical context. Linguistics has many practical applications in speech and language therapy, in computer science, and in robotics. Being a linguist is a bit like being a detective, because the way language works isn't directly available to human observation. And so to figure out how language works requires examining evidence. So, and evidence consists of things like patterns that occur in human speech, patterns that occur in language, and the way listeners respond to things that they hear or to sign language that they see. So all of that consists of the evidence that we have to tell us, to give us clues about how language works. But being a linguist is much better than being a detective because we have way more evidence. So detectives have only a limited amount of evidence, and that's why they use those magnifying glasses, because it's so hard to see the evidence. But we have infinite amounts of evidence. Every time someone opens their mouth or signs using sign language, they're creating linguistic evidence. And every time you listen to someone speak or watch them sign, you're behaving in a way that can be considered linguistic evidence. So linguistics and English language in Edinburgh is a really exciting place. Our department is world leading. It's ranked #1 in the UK and #3 in the world by the QS World University Rankings. And our department is part of the wider school of philosophy, psychology, and language sciences. And this relates back to the interdisciplinary point that I made before. So it's in an ideal context, being a sister subject to philosophy and psychology. And I very much hope that you'll have the chance to meet some of your fellow students in other subject areas. Many of them share an interest in language, but from different perspectives. Second thing I like about linguistics and English language here in Edinburgh is the staff. So this slide shows you many of the staff, the members of academic staff in our department. And we have over 30 members of academic staff, and they teach a very broad range of subdisciplines of linguistics and English language. And these range from things like historical syntax all the way through to speech technology. And our staff are all teachers and researchers, and they're committed to research-led teaching. And what that means is that our staff contribute to the knowledge, to creating the knowledge that you hear about in your lectures. And more than that, they're also committed to training you to become researchers in your own right. And so in your 4th year, many of you will write a dissertation in linguistics and English language. And this will be an original contribution to knowledge that you will make with the guidance of your supervisors. The third thing that I like about linguistics and English language in Edinburgh is you, the students. You are really what makes us what we are. You contribute to the community of people who love linguistics and English language. You contribute to the research that goes on here. You each have your own unique perspectives on language, your unique experiences that you bring. And this is really what makes our community what it is. We, as teachers, the staff, benefit tremendously from your input. So we very much see teaching and research as a collaborative effort. So something that the students contribute to, the lecturers provide input, but we rely on you very much in providing feedback about things that you do and don't understand, and especially in the current climate. So in the pandemic, where we're all teaching in a different way than we normally do. So online delivery will form a huge part of your experience, at least in this semester. And this is something that we've been working hard at this summer, but we will really benefit from your perspective on how this teaching takes shape. So we're looking forward to working with you this semester and throughout the year. The students in linguistics and English language have a lot of initiative, and one of their initiatives is the Linguistics Society, which is a society that you'll hear more about in a minute. But I think it's one of the treasures of our department. And so that's me finishing off my spiel, but what I really want to do is just to send you my very best wishes for the start of the semester. And I hope very much that I'll get to meet many of you in person soon. And so I will turn over to Cleona and Aaron, who will tell you more about the Linguistics Society.
Hi everyone, so my name's Cleona. I'm the president of the Linguistics Society.
And I'm Aaron, the vice president of the Linguistics Society. Now, Linguistics Society, or LingSoc as we like to call it, is just a fun place where you can come for support from the classroom, meeting new friends, community, and just enjoying linguistics with other linguistic students. For that, we have events which we run every Wednesday evening. It goes between socials to just have fun, get to know each other, and then academic talks where you can learn about current research that's being done from the researchers doing it, which is really interesting. Along with that, we have paper discussions every other Thursday, and we try and make those as interesting as possible with new research that's just coming out and is also usually relevant to different social issues and things to see how linguistics applies in a lot of different scenarios. Along with these weekly events, we have some events specifically for Welcome Week. So tomorrow at 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. British Standard Time, we have a meet and greet where you can meet the committee and also just chat and get to know other linguistic students that are going to be there and who you'll be hanging out with in Linguistics Society. Along with that, on Saturday at 11 and 7, we have Exploring Accents, where you get to test some of your abilities and try and see if you can figure out where different speakers are from and just have some fun with a nice quiz.
So for the time being, all our events are going to be online. And so for that reason, membership for semester 1 is completely free. So you have no reason not to join us. In order to stay up to date about when and on what platforms our events are running, make sure to follow us on social media or sign up to our mailing list. And you can see the details along the bottom of the slide there. If you have any questions for us, you can contact us via social media or email. And we'll also be at the online activities fair over the next 2 weeks. So you can talk to us via the chat function on there. And yeah, our events are just a great way to meet other people who are interested in linguistics and make friends with the people on your course. So I just want to welcome you all to our society, and I hope to see as many of you as possible at our online events this semester.
And now we're passing you off to Chris and Wataru talking about your courses this year.
Yep, I'm just asking them to unmute.
Sorry about that. Am I okay for level now? Right. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Chris Cummins, and I'm the course organizer for Linguistics and English Language 1A, or LEL 1A, which is the course you'll be taking in the first semester. Like a lot of people, I came into linguistics via a slightly circuitous route. I started out as a maths student, but I'd always had an interest in language, and particularly how it is that we're able to communicate so remarkably well. In fractions of a second in conversation, we can think of a complex idea, figure out how to express it in words, and start actually doing so. And I'd always kind of wondered how that could be and what was happening in the mind to make it possible. So for that reason, ultimately, I've ended up working in pragmatics, the study of meaning in context and how we encode and decode it. Particularly from an experimental and psychological angle. And I'll be saying a little bit more about pragmatics in the first week of LEL 1B in semester 2. So what is there in LEL 1A? Well, a lot of the course is about introducing how we study language and what its component parts are. So the sounds of speech, the units that make up words, the way words combine to form sentences, and the way that sentences are organized into something we might call discourse. Alongside this, the course will talk about how language changes over time, as the course title and English language suggests, with particular reference to English, but with much more general applicability. It'll talk a bit about how we learn language, and it will also raise some of those very general questions that we sometimes think about when we think about human language, such as, what do we mean by human language? In what way is what we call language specific to humans? And in what ways does it exhibit some kind of continuity with other forms of communication that we observe in nature? So through the course, we'll be exploring all these questions through videos, readings, discussions, and exercises, including the data problems or Olympiad-style problems that you'll hear quite a lot about and which are a major feature of this course. Today, I think we'll have an example of an exercise involving language analysis, and we'll have also an example of a data problem to give you an idea of the kind of thing we're talking about. The introductory material for LEL 1A should already be available to you on Learn. My contact details are there, as well as those of the course secretary, Susan Hermiston. I will be around for the rest of this session to answer any questions that you have, but also please feel free to email me or email Susan, or use the discussion board. I'll respond as quickly as I can. So welcome once again, and I hope you enjoy the course.
Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to Edinburgh. My name is Wataru Uegaki, and I'll be the course organizer for LEL 1B. LEL 1B will pick up where LEL 1A leaves off. You will learn more about linguistic theories that allow us to understand how language works in general, as well as the structure and history of English. There will be a variety of topics, including, for example, how language varies in use and how sign languages differ from spoken languages. In addition to being the course organizer, I will be in charge of lectures on semantics, which is the study of how sentence meanings are derived. Since Alice and Chris have talked about how they got into linguistics, let me also talk about that. So I'm originally from Japan, but my family and I went to California in the US when I was 5 and stayed there for a year. And my parents tell me that I became very fluent in English very quickly. And I even made phone calls to my friends in English. And as you may know, making a phone call in a foreign language is very difficult. And actually right now, I absolutely hate making phone calls actually in any language. But anyway, so I became very fluent in English very quickly. But once I went back to Japan after a year, I lost my English ability completely. Again, very quickly. So this experience was very frustrating to me, but at the same time, it also made me curious about why knowledge of a certain language is so natural to native speakers, but not to others, and more generally, how linguistic knowledge is structured in our mind. Of course, I didn't know about linguistics, and I didn't say like, "Mommy, how is linguistic knowledge structured in our mind?" I didn't say that when I was 6 or 7. But when I got to university and when I took an introductory linguistics course, I was immediately hooked on linguistics. So that's why I'm very, very excited to be in a position to introduce you to linguistics this time. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you next semester in level 1B. Details of the course are available on Learn, and my email address is also there. So please let me know if you have any questions.
Right, okay. So there will also be a Q&A at the end. We're going to try and do that. But for now, we are going to try and do some linguistics with you, if you don't mind, and also English language. So there will be 2 parts of that. And for that, there are 2 things we'll be using that you need to know about. The first thing is Mentimeter. This is something that we used, as I said, yesterday in the meeting with Holly. So you have Alice's slide that you have in front of you is telling you what to do. So if you take your other device or open up another tab on your computer and go to menti.com and enter this code, and I'm going to put the code in the chat now as well so that you have it. So it's in the chat now as well. There, what we'll do is we will give you an introduction to the task we expect you to do, and then we will put you into breakout groups. So I will press the button, and then Zoom will invite you to a breakout group. So please join that. The groups are all roughly size 7, as far as I can see, and there should be a member of staff or one of our graduate students in each room. So if there's only undergraduate students in your room, there should be a button that's called something like "Call for Help." So please press that. But I think there should be someone to help you out in each breakout room, and you will have about 10 minutes to work on each of the 2 assignments. And the assignments are pretty, I don't know if they're pretty easy, but they're pretty straightforward, I think, to approach. And there will be questions that you will be asked, and the questions will be on your slides, and they will be in Mentimeter. And then we'll go through the results as they come in. So I'll give you, as I said, about 10 minutes for each task. But the first task, which will be introduced by my colleague, Dr. Warren McGuire, who I'm about to unmute. This is on the English language side of our department. And Warren will, I think, start introducing what this is while I'll set it up for you. Okay, Warren, you're on.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Warren. I'm a senior lecturer in English language in LEL. And we're going to do a fun little task here, which kind of relates to some of my own interests. Some of my colleagues have talked about what got them into linguistics. Well, what got me into linguistics? It's interesting to think about that. I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere. I'm not going to tell you where that farm was. You can stick in the comments where you think I'm from just by listening to me. I grew up on the farm in the middle of nowhere, and one of the things that you learn when you grow up on a farm in the middle of nowhere is there's nothing to do. So you kind of have to get interested in stuff. And what did I get interested in as a young fella? I got interested in the way people around me were speaking, which was, as I discovered when I went to school in town, quite different than other people spoke. And the other thing I got interested in was wildlife, because there was lots of wildlife going on around me. Now, if you're a biologist or a zoologist, one of the things you really like is biodiversity. You recognize the importance of it for understanding the natural world and as part of the natural world. Well, as linguists, we also like diversity in language. We're interested in how people speak. Sorry, I'm just laughing at one of the comments. We're interested in how people speak, the variation that there is between the way people speak, what it tells us about where people come from, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is something that I find really fascinating. How the way people speak varies according to where in the world they're from, or where they grew up, or who they are, or what their background is, and so on and so forth. So we're going to have a little look at an exercise on that, and we're going to ask you some questions. When we're going to play your recording, and you're going to listen to the recording, and you're going to have a think about what that speaker, can you understand the speaker? What are they speaking? How they're speaking tell you about them, and so on and so forth like that. Okay, so let me just look at the comments and see if anybody's worked out where I'm from. There are some, yeah, not too far off, Aoife. Ricky says Irish, a bit too general there, Ricky, I think we'll agree. Anyway, I'm from near Omagh in County Tyrone in Northern Ireland, so that's not too far wrong. Okay, so Pavel, I think you're in control, you're in charge of the controls. So what I want you to do is listen to this recording, and then Pavel will flick up some questions afterwards, and we can then go into our groups and have a think about those. Thanks, Pavel.
That's the time of year when you take your sai and ging down on the muidu to cut the gers. Sharpen, you would hear them sharpen their sai things. And after a oak, it was lying a oak, then he would take the rake and rake it up and big calls. And you saw there's going up all over that. It had to be dry weather. And kind of sun and wind was what you wanted. And then he would come a gal. Among that, coming on from this time of year, you can stand by for gals. And when the wind was coming off at the high Navan at Sannes, and you would see the sea sweeping in around the sand, great Uyghurs coming down the sun. And the sweep up of the sand was enormous, so we had to go and draw the boat leg by leg up into the winter nose. But then it would settle by, and the wind would ease down, and then you would smell the grave. That's the sea curling up the bottom, and the smell of the wire and so on. But then the boat would come out of the nose again, and things settled down and should be done up at the beach.
All right.
Okay, so have we, yeah. All right, so we're going to be sent into groups. Pavel's just put up on the slide there the questions that we're going to think about individually in the groups, and you'll be able to have a wee chat among ourselves, and then we'll all gather together again to discuss our answers afterwards.
That's right. So yes, if you go to this to the Mentimeter, to menti.com with that code, you will see these slides and these questions, so you can reference. And then also on these slides, you will have this link. So tiny.cc/lel-dialect, and that's where you can actually listen to it again if you want to. But your staff members in your breakout groups will be there also because they have access to it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I am now about to throw you into the breakout rooms. Good luck. All right, I think we're all back. You can type in the chat, let us know how you got on. But Warren, I think I'm now going to ask you to debrief us on what's happened, and we'll see what you all thought about this.
Okay, I don't know about your group, but my group didn't have enough time to discuss this. We needed more time. This was too meaty a topic to cover in a few minutes. It was really interesting. We were just starting to scratch the surface. I had people in my group from South Africa, from Yorkshire, from Sussex, and so on. All different kinds of speech, and we were interested in what this was. There was a little bit of uncertainty as to where in the world it might be from, and there was a fair concentration on Ireland and Scotland. I think maybe that's shared by other people.
Well, let's see what people thought. Yes.
All right. Do you just want to go through the results of what people thought? Go on ahead.
Yes. Let's look at the results.
Okay. So yeah, this kind of equates to what was the case in our group, where people kind of understood the speaker, but not everything. Some people said some bits were really easy to understand and other bits were really, oh, it's going down. Other bits were difficult to understand. So, of course, how well you understood it maybe bears upon the next question, which is kind of an interesting one.
All right.
Wow. Okay. I hope some of you aren't changing your answers based on what the discussion is happening now. We can't.
No,
oh, good. Okay. All right. So that's really interesting. Only 34%. 30 is that? I don't know whether it's percentage or number.
That's numbers.
35. 35. If you thought it was definitely the same language as English. Could you understand it? Though you could understand it a bit. A question I put to my group was, if you speak Spanish, can you understand any Italian? Well, unfortunately, there were no Spanish or Italian speakers in my group. I also said, if you're Norwegian, can you understand any Swedish? And unfortunately, no Norwegian or Swedish speakers. But those are interesting questions, because the answer to both of those questions is a bit, yes, sometimes more, sometimes less. But none of us would want to stand up and say Spanish and Italian are the same language. So the lack of intelligibility, or the intelligibility between two things, doesn't necessarily determine whether they're languages or not. And I think that's possibly reflected in your answers here. Some of you said it's definitely the same language because you understood quite a bit. Some of you said it's possibly the same language because you understood a bit, but maybe not all of it. And some of you, and I'm interested in this, 5 of you said definitely not the same language. And I'd be interested to know if anybody out of those 5 or anybody else has got an opinion as to what it actually is then.
All right.
Somebody
Shall I
says
move
it's more a political question than a linguistic question, but I'd like to think linguistics has got something to do with it, because we are judging whether we can understand the speaker and we're comparing it to standard English and so on. Anybody got any suggestions as to what it is if it's not English? Norwegian? Ah, somebody's written Scots, somebody's written Gaelic, somebody's written Ulster Scots, somebody's written Shetlandic, somebody's written Old English. Wow, what is it? Let's have a look. Okay, so the biggest word there, I think, is dialect. Interesting. Then we've got Shetland in big letters. That seems to be indicative of something. English in big letters, Scots in big letters, Irish in big letters. It's not from Ireland. Anything Doric? That's it. Welsh. People talking about the weather there a little bit. Working class. Now that's an interesting thing, because one of the questions I ask you is, can we tell anything about the speaker from the way he speaks? And I don't know about you, but he doesn't sound like a lawyer or a member of the aristocracy or a teacher or anything. He sounds like a local guy who has done fishing all his life. That's what he sounds like to me. But that's not even with the content of what he says. It's just the way he speaks potentially tells us things about his background. Yola dialect in Wexford. That's an interesting one for somebody to come up with. There's all sorts of interesting things in there. There are evaluative terms. There are terms about his likely setting. There are terms like dialect and accent. And one of the things we'll be exploring in your degree as we go on is, what do these terms mean? How do linguists understand them and so on? Because the biggest word there is dialect. And you could say, this guy speaking a dialect. Are we speaking a dialect? Am I speaking a dialect right now? Does the Queen speak a dialect? These are interesting questions. Or is it just people who aren't speaking standard English that are speaking dialect? Well, linguists have got particular answers to that that we'll discuss through your degree. And where in the world is it from? Scotland, correct. Shetland, correct. This is a fisherman from Shetland. Northern Scotland. Ireland's featuring pretty big in there, and people do sometimes think this speaker sounds a bit Irish, and I don't think he does, but there's got to be something going on in terms of similarities of accents. Somebody's just asked, is it Norn or something similar? And I don't see Norn having come up before. And if you're not familiar with what the term Norn means, Norn was the language which developed in Shetland and Orkney as a result of Viking settlement in the medieval period. So it's essentially a Scandinavian language that was spoken in the Northern Isles of Scotland. It's now extinct, but it has left an impression in the local dialects that are spoken in Shetland and Orkney today. Have we got any other questions to go through, Pavel? Or okay, so you look at some of those terms that are flashing up on the screen there. I think we can probably agree with many of those. It's not the topic of what he's speaking about obviously tells us something about him, but the sound of his voice, the nature of his dialect and so on tell us other things as well. So for example, so the word older features quite large in the diagram there. If you're all a lot younger than me, I suspect, but even people my generation from where I come from in Tyrone don't speak real broad non-standard dialect these days, or most people don't, and it's often people my parents' age who speak in that really non-standard way, and maybe that's a situation which is replicated not just in Scotland but elsewhere, and that's something you're keying into there, that if you speak in this extremely non-standard way, that probably indicates something about your age and so on. Okay, so yeah, are there any other questions to go through?
That's it for this one.
Okay, so well, one of the lessons from what we've done is that linguists are interested in language variation, and there's a great deal of variation out there. We're not just interested in standard English. Standard English, of course, is an interesting phenomenon in itself, but we're interested in non-standard varieties. We're interested in the question of what counts as the English language, and there was some uncertainty whether this counts as English or not, and some people used the term Scots, and Scots is a term which some people group in with English and other people say isn't English, and these are interesting questions we're going to investigate. But one thing I suppose that you're going to have to get used to now that you're studying linguistics and English languages, you're going to be starting to listen to how people speak on the bus or on the TV or on the internet or in your lectures, and you'll inevitably find yourself listening to how they're speaking rather than what they're saying. And that's a good thing. That's what linguists do. So there you go. That's our dialect task done.
Okay, so we are going to. I hope that I can't see the chat when I'm doing all these things. So, and we move on to our next activity. We'll be looking at. You see below. So sorry.
Pavel, can I just stop you? I think we're having some audio issues. I'm not sure if I'm the only one. It's a bit of trouble understanding you.
Is that all right? What's happening?
You're just cutting out a lot.
Yeah. Right.
Oh.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmute Graham.
Yeah, so Graham is going to introduce the puzzle.
If that's okay.
Okay, can people hear me?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Graham Trousdale. I'm the Professor of Cognitive Linguistics in the department, and many of you will get to know me and Pavel quite well in the coming semester, because we're going to be working with you quite a lot on puzzles like this. So what you've got here is a little map. And when you go into your breakout rooms, what we want you to do is to help somebody. So the background story is as follows: that there's somebody, Millie, who is visiting Yerevan, which is the capital of Armenia, and she is lost. She is at a metro station, and the metro station that she's at is Shangavit, but our friends are waiting for her at a different station. So what we want you to do is to get Millie from one station to another station. And in order to be able to do that, you need to be able to work out where she is and where she needs to go. Okay, now this might look very tricky, but you are going to have a lot of support from the people in the staff members in your groups. So what we're going to do is exactly the same as we did with the dialect puzzle. What we're going to do is go back into small breakout groups and try and help Millie get to her friends. So Pavel, if you could send us back to the breakout rooms now, we'll work on that and then we'll come back. And we'll do Mentimeter to answer some of these questions. Okay. All right.
Okay, so I think we're back. How do you guys get on? You can put something in the chat if you want to say something about that. I assume you can hear me again. Yes? Okay. Right, so let me just first let's look at what your answers were. I think that would be interesting, and then we can talk a little bit about how, well, no, actually, first let me talk a little bit about how what you just did relates to how we'll be teaching on this degree, and in particular in the coming months in your first year courses. So hopefully you've made at least some progress on this. And this is the kind of puzzle, the kind of task that you'll be dealing with a lot across LEL 1A, where you come in entirely cold, not knowing really anything, or at least being expected to know anything about this phenomenon or this language that you're working with, but you are given some hints and clues that you can start sort of pulling at in order to untangle the whole puzzle. And obviously, we're not giving you anywhere near enough time to make sure that everyone actually has the time to do it. But hopefully, at least you might have had you have made some progress. And even if you don't know the entire Armenian alphabet by now, then at least you know some of the letters, and you can. So you have, as I say, made some progress with this puzzle. Now, the other kind of property that this puzzle has is, of course, being, now on the internet, you could have just Googled a map of the Yerevan metro, which I couldn't tell you if there is Wi-Fi in the Yerevan metro, and so our hero Millie would maybe not have had that possibility open to her. But even when we give you tasks like this that are in principle easily Googleable, we hope that you see that there is a value in doing this that goes beyond just finding out what the answer is and actually just trying to think in terms of the data that you're given and in terms of the logic of the data itself. So now what we'll do is we'll first look at what you thought the answer to at least question 1 was. So which station should you be taking the train in direction of? So I'm going to share my screen again, go back to Mentimeter and see what you guys thought about that. And the vast majority of you thought that this should be going in the direction of Gortsaranayan station, or industrial, delightful bit of Soviet naming. And this is indeed the correct answer. So I think we can all pat ourselves on our collective backs. So just in case, we can probably, I can probably give you a little, some hints and some clues as to how we could have got there. So let me just change my share to something that I can actually draw on. Right. So how would we approach this kind of puzzle? So the easiest way of doing this is probably to notice that if you look at all these names, then there is one station, it's this one, whose name consists of 3 words, right? There's no other station. There are some stations that have 2 words in the name, but there's only 3, only one of them that has 3 words in the name. And if we then go to this list that's given to us, then the only station that that it could be is this one. So Garagin Nechdehi Hraparak. That is, so these two must be the same thing. So we know that these three words are, these three Armenian words must correspond to Garagin Nechdehi Hraparak. On this basis, we can then try to figure out what is, for example, the direction of the script, right? And we can notice that there is this letter, which, you know, if we read it left to right, then it ends the first word and starts the second one. And if we go back to the English name, then we can see that the N also ends the first word and starts the second one. So this is telling us that presumably Armenian, just like the Latin script is read left to right. And on this basis, you can then quite easily map. You can say that, for example, this first word here means garegin, and indeed we see this letter g that repeats twice. So this is letter g, this is letter a. And so this gives you quite a few letters to work with. And so, for example, you can notice that this last letter is k. And we know that there are at least two other, well, there are in fact two other stations whose name also ends in k. This one, oh, that didn't work so well, but you know, this one, and then also this one, right? We see that the first one I highlighted, the second word there is the same word, hraparak. So we can't say very much about that one. But this station here, whose name also ends in k, so this must be then Zoravar Andranik. And that's then gives us even more letters to work with. So hopefully you could use that kind of reasoning and that kind of thinking to find out that the station Shengavit is this one here, and the station Barekamutun, where her friends are, is here. So this is the station that she needs to be going towards, and this name here is Gortsaranan. So you could find that out, and a lot of you have managed to find that out correctly over, you know, what, 10 minutes. So I think we should, again, pat ourselves on our collective backs for this. So now let's look at the slightly trickier part of this puzzle, which is then about the other station. So let's go back to our answers. Can you see the answers again? Yeah? Yeah, okay. So what do you think the answer was? There is quite a few suggestions, but by far the biggest suggestion is Avtogortsaran, right? So there's questions about what is the symbol that looks like S, which is a very reasonable question. Some of you have managed to read at least parts of this word, again, maybe just on the basis of at least parts of the other words that you've been able to read. So how did you know this? Well, the key question, of course, is exactly, as someone is saying, what is the symbol that looks like the Latin letter S? So now let's just go back to the bit that I can annotate. And the right way to approach this would then be to look for other examples of this letter. And if we look for other examples of this letter, we'll see that it occurs in a couple of other station names. So let's see if I can highlight them for you. So there was this one, right? So here it is, sitting in this station name, and if you tried reading the station name, then you end up with an Armenian word that you obviously can't do very much about. The same is true also here. So again, we know that the second word here is this word hraparak, which just means square, actually. But again, this here is just some kind of Armenian word that we can't do very much with. But there is also this bit, right? There's something here, and there's this word that contains the letter that we're wondering about. And if we try writing that out, right, then what we see is that the first letter here is the M. We have that in Barekamutun. The second letter here is what we call in English E. So something, so this goes M-E, unknown letter, then R, then O, then P, then O again, then something we don't know, then I, then unknown letter, then E, and then N. So if we try to write that out, we end up with M-E, unknown, R-O, P-O, unknown, I, unknown, E-N. And this, remember, is a map of the Yerevan Metro. Or where does the word metro come from? Well, of course, it comes from the Metropolitan line on the London Tube. So it looks very plausible that this word here is the word metropolitan to refer to the subway system. So we can then conclude that the unknown letter is some version of a T, and this will allow us to answer this question. So I'm going to stop now. Sorry, and I hope that gave you an idea of, I hope those activities, both of them, actually gave you an idea of what kinds of things we will be doing in the course and throughout the degree, really. So I will now hand over to Graham, who will say a few concluding words, and we can then field any questions. All right. Graham.
Okay, thanks very much, Pavel. It's been really great to speak to you all this morning. It's really unfortunate that we're not able to do this in person, but it's been really fantastic to get to meet you, and we're really, really looking forward to getting to know you all over the next 4 years. We're really excited about your journey with us. We thought that we might have some time for a few questions. If people had any really pressing questions that they wanted to post into the chat, we could try to answer them. But if not, what we can do is, you've been introduced to all of us, and we're all happy to answer any questions that you might have about the nature of the course. So one question is everything completely online? So in the first semester, what we have done is made it possible for you to complete your studies in 1A with us remotely. So it will be possible to complete the course at a distance. If you are physically in Edinburgh, there are going to be a number of drop-in sessions where you can particularly work on the language puzzles with Pavel and me. Okay, so we will explain more of this in the Learn site for L1A. Okay. So there will be the opportunity for some in-person meetings if you're physically in Edinburgh, but they will be drop-in sessions, and you will not be at a disadvantage if you need to not be in Edinburgh. And of course, should the situation become such that everything moves online, where you're going to be fine and you're going to be able to complete 1A. You have a question about when your online lectures are going to be and accessing the timetable, etc. Okay, so as you'll see when you go onto the Learn course for 1A, perhaps Chris would like to respond in detail about this. I will say something briefly. But the whole point about moving things in this hybrid way is to enable people to access the materials at a time that is convenient for them. So you'll see this when you go onto the L1A website, the Learn website, that you will have access to a lot of materials and you'll be able to work through the lecture material at your own pace. Okay, so what else?
Shall I come in on that?
Yes, please do.
So yes, so for 1A, the materials for each week will be released on the Monday of each week, and they'll be available from then on. The only item that you should have in your timetable from 1A is the tutorial session, which is going to be 1 hour. It's going to be scheduled for Thursday or Friday, and we're just finalizing the details of that. you will not normally be required to meet in the tutorial at that time, although it may be convenient for you to do so. Once or twice in the term, we're going to try and have a meeting at that time. So hopefully that will be, you'll be allocated to a tutorial that shouldn't clash with any other obligations that you have. If the tutorial you're allocated to doesn't work, you can apply to switch to another tutorial. But as I said, that will just be for literally a couple of hours over the course of the semester. Everything else you can do in your own time, the exception being those tutorial meetings which you'll be able to arrange. There are more details on that on the video on Learn introducing the tutorials, and we'll be providing more detailed briefings as the picture becomes fully clear over the next couple of days.
Okay. So there are questions about timetables and so the timetable is a difficult one to answer, because it's unlikely that you will have these kinds of what we call synchronous events. Okay, what we're trying to do is to enable people, because we have people in lots and lots of different time zones taking LEL 1A with us. We want people to be able to access the course materials when it is convenient for them, okay? So much of what you're going to have to do, it will be to work out your own timetable, and this is why you need to speak to your personal tutor. Now, the personal tutor system will have been explained to you, and you'll have the opportunity to meet with your personal tutor at some point this week, who will go through these things and explain things with you, okay?
Sorry, Graham.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to add, just to add in on the timetable. So normally what happens with the timetable, in a normal year, what you would have in timetable, you're taking 3 courses normally in a semester. And first year, the first year courses normally have something like 3 hours of a lecture, 1 hour of a tutorial, right? And that is very hard timetable. You have to be in that place at that time. So for that reason, people get full timetables, throughout the week. Now, this year, some of you will actually not be on courses, right? So some of you are asking, why is my timetable empty? Well, probably because some of you might just not be signed up to your outside courses in any case, so you won't just have anything to timetable. But for many courses, not just for 1A, but across the university, because we're all in very similar positions, because of this hybrid nature, then what's happening is that, for example, in a normal week, you're expected to be in a lecture for 3 hours a week. And most lectures are online because there's no space to run them, right? And so for this reason, your timetable will look quite empty because there's not the lecture hours, because lots and lots of courses are doing what Chris just described, just releasing the lectures, the video lectures, they're releasing them on Monday first thing, and you just have the week to work through them. So that won't turn up in timetable. So there will be tutorials.
Pavel, can I just ask, are we going to get kicked out at 1:30 from Zoom?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I hope not.
Okay.
No, we have this session until 2 o'clock.
Okay, perfectly. Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Pavel.
Yes. And I would expect that many other courses that you're taking throughout the university will be also similar. They won't have timetable lectures. They might have some timetable smaller activities like tutorials. But basically, you shouldn't be expecting to see a big full timetable, right? Because the timetable activities where you have to be at a particular place is going to be only a small number of those, just because of space constraints. So the LEL 1A Q&As. So that's something that it's also a bit difficult, because the way we want to run this is not very compatible with just that system, the Outlook. And yes, Alice is exactly right. Your course organizers will be in touch with you to tell you what to do. But generally don't worry too much about what's in your Outlook timetable, because there won't be very much in it, certainly this semester, because the lectures are all, the big lectures have to be online because there's no space to run them. And so they will all be asynchronous. In terms of the LEL 1A.
Go ahead.
In terms of the LEL 1A, there are a lot of slots, because we're hoping that you will come and talk to us in big numbers. But they will be, again, they operate in a small room. The capacity of the room, I think, is 14 total, so 12 students, yes? It's a small room, and we'll be asking you to make appointments so that we know how many people are coming to a particular slot and that we don't overrun the capacity of the room. So the LL1A Q&A things you see in the timetable, they're just the slots that we have the room for, and we will upload a document, hopefully even tomorrow, but certainly by the end of this week, that will tell you exactly how you'll be able to book those drop-ins. And we do hope that you do that, because they are there to help you, and we're very, very keen to see you.
So we may not offer all of those Q&A sessions in that very first week. We may offer a subset of them in week 1, which is the week after this one, and we'll see what kind of uptake there is, see how many people sign up to come, and then if we need to, we'll obviously open up more the following week and so on, just to see how many, because many of you, I was asking in my breakout group, how many of you were in Edinburgh, and you know, of the 6 people who were in there, 3 people were not. So we just need to see how many people are physically in Edinburgh, how many people are going to come along to these Q&A sessions. But there will be that opportunity. That's important to know, that there will be that opportunity for you. Julia asks, are office hours going to be available or not given COVID? If what you mean by office hours there are, will you be able to meet in person, one-on-one, in a room with your personal tutor? The answer to that currently is no. That is not what we are able to do. But you will be able to have individual meetings, both with your personal tutor and with the people that are teaching you on the course. But it will be like this. It will be either via Teams or another platform.
So Martha is asking, should you arrange a meeting with a PT to choose optional courses? That is an emphatic no. If you know what you need to do for, like, if you know what your course choices are, you don't have to wait until you're able to meet your personal tutor. So if you know what you want to choose, then you should just go onto the Learn Student Hub, and under the menu there is choosing your courses, and there's links there to course choice forms. So you really don't have to wait until you've met your PT to put in your course choices. If you need guidance, if you have questions about choosing your optional courses, then please, yes. So either post on the discussion boards on the hub, and people will be able to answer those questions, or if you're in a meeting with your PT, so obviously if you need help, we are here to help you, but you don't have to wait just for this meeting to occur in order to choose your courses.
So Celia asks, am I supposed to have gotten a PT meeting time all my other flatmates have? Yes, your personal tutor should contact you quite soon if they have not done so already, to try to arrange a meeting with you this week. It's likely to be a group meeting, so please check. There may be information on your hub, on the UG Hub page on Learn, to check to see if your PT has been in contact with you about when the meetings are going to be. If you've got a problem with that, Celia, please get in touch with me, and I'll chase that up for you.
So Ines is saying 3 working days. I mean, it will take up to 3 working days, right? Because there's several hundred new students who the office has to process. So it may not take 3 working days, but in any case, the teaching office are doing their very best to have you signed up for your courses by the end of the week, so that on Monday you know which courses you're on.
And Patricia asks, should we request a meeting with our PT then to discuss our personal timetable? Okay, the PT should get in contact with you. What should happen this week is you'll have a group meeting, all of the first years together probably will have a group meeting with their PT, and at that meeting you can ask questions and try and discuss the things that you want to discuss. They should be able to give you advice about how to plan your time this semester, because of the hybrid situation we're in. Okay, that would be the place to discuss how to organize your time, this semester.
Right, so I was just scrolling back. So one question that I think comes up a lot is, what courses complement linguistics well? And I think I can give you an answer to that, but I would preface that by saying, don't worry too much about complementing your main degree well, because this, the beauty of the system that we have is this is your time and place to try new things. You don't have to be focused only on your degree and how you can, your named degree and how you can, make things better for just that degree and so on. I just think about what you're finding interesting. Think about this is your chance to do something at university level that you otherwise might not have ever done or you had never thought of doing. So don't really think of complementary linguistics as the main, or English language as the main thing that should guide you in your course choices. Just try to do something fun and interesting. But in practice, lots of but the slightly countervailing concern to that is that we do encourage you to look for degrees that combine with linguistics, at least maybe even for a combined honors. So that will maximize your options. And I just posted something on the discussion board this morning when I think I just gave a list of the joint degrees that exist with LEL, so you can check that. Of course, lots of our students take languages. We have quite a wide selection of languages in the university. Both those that combine with linguistics, that includes most of the Western European languages that we offer, and also Celtic, and also Russian, Chinese, and Japanese. There are other languages that don't exist as combined degrees, so things like Arabic and Persian and Turkish, but you can still take them. But generally, people take all sorts. Obviously, there are sister subjects in PPLS, philosophy, psychology. There's an introduction to cognitive science course. Obviously, that is very relevant as well. But generally, it's just see what takes your fancy, and there's no real advantage or disadvantage to doing particular or not doing particular courses if you're on a linguistics degree. We'll teach you everything you need to be successful in your linguistics degree. So don't worry too much about it.
Anna's asked a question: how can we choose our optional courses if we don't know the times of our core courses? Because they shouldn't clash, right? Well, of course, so given that so much of what is going to be on offer this semester will be asynchronous, that means not at a scheduled time, you ought to be able to choose pretty much anything that you want to do. You would need to, find out a little bit more perhaps about some of these courses just to see what their arrangements are. But the basic principle that we're operating from is that the very nature of the asynchronous delivery should allow you to take the courses that you want.
Yeah, I think one slight consideration about clashes, if you are, and I'm happy to answer those questions if you just email me. There is a consideration that sometimes you're thinking of taking something through your first 2 years, and then next year hopefully we are back on campus, and the second year courses start clashing, right? So a notable example is Latin. So Latin does not normally in first year Latin does not clash with linguistics, and people are kind of wanting to take it, and then they're thinking of continuing to second year and doing maybe classics and linguistics, but there's a clash in second year. That will kind of come back, and then you can't do that. And it's obviously impossible to find now because all the bets are off for timetabling. So if you are thinking about something that you might consider doing into second year and even a combined honors degree and you're not sure, please post on the discussion boards or email me directly, and I'm happy to advise, because that's slightly sort of inside baseball.
And Kleena and Aaron also mentioned that LingSoc members would be happy to talk about the courses that they did. That's an excellent suggestion. If you can speak to people who are in second, third, and fourth year, and the best way to do that will be via LingSoc, but we're also in consultation with LingSoc, trying to devise some cohort building activities that are going to allow you, if you're physically in Edinburgh, to meet with other people who are in second, third, and fourth years. To talk about things to do with linguistics and English language, but obviously there's this online opportunity to discuss things with LingSoc members, and I would really strongly advise that. It's a really good suggestion. Is there the possibility to audit classes? You would need to speak to this is Julia asking a question about, is it possible to audit classes? I would suggest if you're thinking about trying to audit anything, that you find out who the course organizer and the course secretary is of that course and contact them and ask them whether they're willing to accept auditors. Oops. Okay, no problem. Any other questions that anybody would like to post?
And please shout if we've missed one of your questions, because
yes, exactly. Yes, if there's something else that we missed, sorry, a lot came in at one go earlier on. So it looks like there aren't any other questions coming on the chat at the moment. If you do have further questions, if it's specifically, okay, Rebecca, please could you answer? That's probably the most important question that anybody's asked in the chat. What are you knitting? Can Rebecca come in, or has she disappeared?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm knitting a baby blanket with a kind of knotted texture.
Okay.
There's no baby. I'm just knitting. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. So if anybody wants to get in touch, please do. Can we share this link for LingSoc? Yes, I'm sure that somebody can put that up in the chat. Please get in contact with me. I'm the teaching director for the department. I'm very happy to answer general questions that you might have. I know Pavel, as the director of undergraduate studies for the whole school, is also happy to do this. If you've got questions specifically for 1A or for 1B, I would recommend that you speak to Chris and Wataru respectively. But essentially, anybody who you've met today, any of the staff members who you've met today will be really, really happy to help you. And of course, Alice as well has posted as head of subject. She'd be really happy to hear from you as well. We know that this is weird. We do know that this is very, very strange. I mean, in how many ways is it strange? It is a very, very strange situation. But we are here to help you. We are here to teach you. We are here to share our enthusiasm about linguistics and about the English language with you all. We are really excited. I know it's strange, but we still are really, really excited to be teaching you. So thank you so much for coming today and to listening to us, to having a good go at the dialect puzzle and the Yerevan puzzle as well. I don't know, Alice, if there's anything else you want to add, or you?
No, it's just to say thank you for joining us, and this is going to be a really memorable year, and we just really want to make sure that you know that you're welcomed here, and we really look forward to teaching you.
Okay. Oh, one last question. If we choose to go to the Q&A sessions, is it supposed to be one per week? So we'll just need to see how many people sign up. You know, if everybody who was enrolled on the course was in Edinburgh, it would be impossible to see everybody once a week. But not everybody is likely to sign up, and not everybody is in Edinburgh. So what I would suggest you do is to sign up, and we'll be in touch with you about the specific details about the sign up once we've got a better sense of some aspects of the numbers. But we will see you at some point. We will definitely see you, and it will be as frequently as we can manage it. Okay, Pavel, anything else you want to say, or?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm just trying to. Katie asked where she can find our emails. Our emails are on the. I'm just going to paste in the link to where you can find.
I think Warren's just
emails
posted them, Pavel.
And,
Pavel.
oh, okay. Good. Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it. Well, thank you all for coming. I think. I don't know how this was for you. I think it worked. And I hope we see you all very soon, one way or the other.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.